I try to pay Papers, Please, and I can't because it's not on my family plan. And I'm like, I only have 9 minutes left for this year.
Russ Crandall did never even finished Half-Life 2 Episode 2 on Steam. We can see it right here. And I'm going to be like, no, I played it on Xbox.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the NerdNest podcast. I am your host, Bill Fairchild, and I'm joined today by the full crew. We've got Russ Crandall. How's it going, Russ?
I'm good. You know, we're all laughing because he was like, all right, let's go ahead and start. Hey, everybody. There was no pause. And so that was just very, for all of us, we were just caught by surprise when we
he's a
started
professional.
live here. Yeah.
I was trying to spook you guys and see if I could get a good face that I could clip for the thumbnail. So,
You
Carrie,
probably got it.
You always got faces for the thumbnail. How you doing, man?
Good. I love Fridays now. I love Fridays so much now. I'm gonna go see Iron Lung tonight with my son. With Markiplier. So right after this, we're gonna go. I don't even know what it's about, but I'm gonna go ahead and enjoy a movie. So I'm looking forward to the weekend.
My son went to see it tonight while I was babysitting my grandkids, and he said, let me find the text real quick. He said, you should see Iron Lung. You will like it. It was so good.
Awesome.
So I said, what genre is it? And he said, sci-fi horror. And I was like, okay, maybe. We'll see how gross it is.
It's cool that it's made by a YouTuber though, right? Because Markiplier made it.
It's only a matter of time. We're going to make a movie.
Yeah.
And the movie is based off the game. I don't know. An adaptation of the game, Iron Lung, which is by David
It gives
Zemansky.
off that vibe. I saw a fraction of a moment in the trailer, and I was like, oh, this seems like a game. He's like, oh, yeah, it's based off a game. I was like, all right, I'll just wait.
That's neat. Super cool.
And that fourth voice that you guys heard is the voice of Rich. How's it going, Rich?
Oh, yeah, I broke that wall. Hey, guys, I am doing great. I am excited to talk about nonsense today because I've been talking about work for these last 5 days. So now I'm excited to just talk about games and stuff.
And that is exactly what we're here to do. We have so many news stories. If you guys scroll, it goes on for quite a long time. Obviously, we're not getting through all this. We'll get through what we can. But I wanted to start off talking about, I feel like we've said this before, is that we've asked the question, is this the year? Is this the year where Linux really gets its foothold? And just this week, we got a couple of stories, although one of the stories I feel like I had heard before. But just this week, we got a couple of stories of companies starting to really wake up and take Linux as a platform seriously. And both of these companies are gaming companies. The first one, not in any particular order, but the first one that happens to be in the show notes is GOG, also known as Good Old Games, also known as the company that used to be owned by CD Projekt Red, but they sold it to one of the founders for, I think it was $25 million. Just to make sure everybody understands exactly what GOG is, it is a storefront, it is a launcher, and it is completely 100% DRM free, which is one of the reasons that I think that it's awesome. But now they basically said that Linux is the next major frontier for gaming, and they're working on making a native client for it. Here's exactly what they said. GOG is our desktop client and ecosystem hub, a place where players manage their libraries, connect with the community, and access features that go far beyond a store. Today, it delivers an experience on Windows and Mac OS. I did not know that it was on Mac OS. But Linux is the next major frontier. We're looking for a senior engineer who will shape GOG Galaxy's architecture, tooling, and development standards with Linux in mind from day one. At the same time, GOG Galaxy is a long-lived product with a large and complex C++ code base. Okay, my eyes glazed over at the end there because I was like, I don't know what he's talking about. I know it's a programming language, but I don't know much about it. The most programming I ever did was BASIC back in high school, and then a little bit of Python and a little bit of Swift, but I don't know anything about C++. So with all that being said, we're now getting other stores shipping Linux versions, or at least they plan to ship a Linux version. Is this a sign of things to come? Do you guys feel like it's a canary in the coal mine? Are we going to start seeing other stores shipping Linux versions so that people can run whatever Linux distribution they want and they can play their games not just through Steam? Kerry, what do you think about that, man?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's going to be the year. It's a terrible year for it to be the year of Linux desktop.
This hard
the curse
disagree.
is back.
It's a perfect year.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be a good year for it to gain. I feel like the percentage of that Linux already via Steam is actually fairly good when you consider that there's like a billion Windows 10 and Windows 11 things out there, like a billion. So Linux is 3% of that, I guess. And that sounds like a big number still. Like, I think that they deserve some credit. So I hope that I for sure we're going to see inroads and stuff, but I still feel that Valve is genuinely the pioneer of this. And insofar as like the Steam Deck really establishing this and the Steam Machine making it a little bit further, and as they keep on getting inroads, it'll be interesting to see the other providers get in there. But ultimately, I still kind of fall back to what Russ said a few podcasts ago of like that 8% number before things really start to accelerate. So I still think that this year generally is going to be like this foundational thing, but nothing that people are going to tangentially feel this year.
Yeah, go ahead, Russ.
I would say this is just kind of a little bit of a bump, if anything, because I was looking up while you were talking, but Steam dominates the PC like digital distribution marketplace by like 75%, right? And then they estimate GOGs somewhere around 10 to maybe 15% altogether. So not that bad, Yeah, it's pretty good. But then you got to remember that within that market share, how many people are going to be using Linux as well? Like how many are going to be base GOG customers, or else just Linux-based users who are going to move over from Steam to GOG? Yeah, I'm not really sure. The nice thing about GOG that I will give them credit for is that, you can go and download all your files offline and then just play them directly from there. And that's what I do. I don't use GOG Galaxy. It's kind of clunky on Windows. And so many of those have a Linux version already embedded in there. So the games themselves, if there is a Linux version, you can just download them directly. So once they get a client going, I think it'll be a pretty seamless experience. It's just a matter of getting that front end rolling. And I think that's going to be pretty cool. But again, I think it won't have that huge impact on this year compared to just the way that Steam is probably, like if I was thinking about how are we going to move Linux forward, I would put all my eggs into the Steam basket just because they have such a big market share.
I'd agree with that. I think GOG itself is not going to be the thing that moves the needle, but I think GOG itself, maybe to Bill's point, is the canary in the coal mine where like it's not just Valve that's pushing this forward. There are other companies that are kind of, for lack of a better term, I'm going to say like hopping on the bandwagon, right? I don't want to put that on GOG who has been a pioneer in the past, but certainly Steam in this case was the trailblazer, right? For like, is this a good year for Linux desktop? I think I came around to what you were saying, Kerry, that this is more of a foundational year. But what I was taking, what you were saying to mean initially was like, this is not the best year because of hardware prices and Rampacalypse and stuff like that, right?
Yes, correct. Like, so this is not a very good year to celebrate or launch that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I was going to say was that said, the what's impressive about Linux's growth in Steam in these last 3 years is that it has grown while the like total addressable market for Steam has also grown, right? Like it's been growing like gangbusters. So like we went from probably, I want to say around 30 million concurrent users to 40 million concurrent users in those last 3 years. Like each month or each few months came with a peak, a new peak. And throughout that time, Linux has also grown. So if the total addressable market stagnates during that time, but we also have Steam Machine and Steam Frame and Steam Deck and all of this stuff, then maybe this is also an opportunity for Linux to have a really big year.
So I was going to add to that I think that this year in particular is a year where maybe a lot of people aren't interested in buying new hardware just because of the prices and whatnot. And so maybe, the solution will be like, I'm thinking to myself back in, 10, 15 years ago, where I had this old Windows laptop and it was kind of junk. I had moved on to something else, but I'm like, hey, now that I don't really care about this and I don't really need it, let's put Linux on it and try that out and see how it goes, right? And so that might, like that experimental phase where we're just kind of thinking, how can we improve our gaming lives without buying new stuff. I feel like the solution in many ways will be Linux based at that point. And so that might be the resurgence we see without people having to buy new hardware.
I don't know if you guys have been keeping up on it or not, but there has been some like other wine stuff and DXVK type of stuff going on in the background insofar as like DirectX 6 to DirectX 12, to Vulkan, sorry, and DX7 to Vulkan, which has historically not really been something that they were looking for. So it's like kind of really in DX9, DX11 territory. So insofar as like good old games, that's like one area where they would kind of critically need more support than just what wine has already accomplished. So I would like if GOG was doing that end as well as just, other things to make it work better. But I mean, there's already like Heroic is already pretty good for attaching to GOG and getting your stuff and downloading and using GameScope and all the other stuff. So there's already like third-party stuff that's pretty solid. So I would rather them work on the middleware layer a little bit more rather than so much like thinking about a front end.
I think one of the reasons why they would want to have their front end be Linux native is because right now, like you just said, Carrie, if people have games in their GOG library, then what they typically will do if they're playing on Linux is they will use Heroic Launcher or some other way to, or Lutris or something like that in order to give them access to those games. And that means that when you go to launch your game, you don't see the other games that are on sale. You don't see what's what other games you could be playing. And that means that GOG is, they're selling you those games and you're able to play those games DRM free, which is awesome. I think a lot of people in the open source community really appreciate the idea that it's DRM free and, these are games that you have purchased and that you actually own in perpetuity, which is fantastic. But then if you never go back to their store, it makes it hard for them to, quote unquote, stay afloat. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that like they're in danger of going out of business or anything, but it's definitely something to consider.
The one thing I didn't know how if we were going to pivot over to another topic. The only thing that I wanted to mention is if you have a Prime membership, Amazon Prime membership,
yes.
If you go to gaming.amazon.com, they have GOG and Amazon have been like tag teaming like crazy. So I think I gained like, I don't know, 100, 200 GOG games that Amazon has just been giving me for free, like, for free as a part of my Prime subscription as a freebie type of thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have been really awesome. So, I mean, I've not really bought much on GOG, but I think my library is like 500 large and like 99% of it is free. So that just like, these are other things that are out there. Obviously, Epic Games has given a lot of free games as well, and then you can use Heroic Launcher for that. But this is just to tie in there is don't forget to look at these avenues where you can claim games on GOG and possibly start building a library there and start taking a look at what they have to offer.
Yeah, I recommend going once a month. I usually just go on there once a month, and usually there's new games to claim. And then with that cadence, set a reminder or whatever, and you can build a pretty big library. And some classics, all the Civ games and Fallout games have been released on GOG for free over the past 6 months, no problem.
Very cool. And those are games that don't require a whole lot of power.
Yeah.
So if you can't buy, 32 gigs of DDR5 RAM to put in your PC because you're not a billionaire, well, then you're going to be okay with 8 gigs of VRAM playing games on GOG.
So I was talking to Wario64 today, and he's like, "Oh, I'm putting together a new PC soon." And I'm like, "Oh, I guess you've been getting some of your deals." He's like, "Oh yeah, I've been buying things." And he showed me this deal from September, which was 16 gigs of DDR5 memory for like $12. And I was like, man.
No way.
12?
Yeah, you got to say it's like September 5th. I got to share the link with you. It's like, I'm looking at the price and I'm like, man, you could be making a bunch of money with this.
Yeah.
That's insane. Amazing.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I did mention that it's not just GOG that's doing it. And I think that I just looked in the show notes, and it's not in the show notes anywhere, or at least I couldn't find it. But GeForce Now is shipping a native Linux client. And what I was saying before is not necessarily that GOG is going to push things forward, but more, is it a sign that things are already pushing forward? And I think a combination of GOG making a native Linux client and GeForce Now making a native Linux client, I think that that's really significant. Russ, you use GeForce Now all the time. Are you excited that they're going to be putting out a native Linux client?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. There already is a native Steam app that came out last year, and that's really handy, and that's good too. You can always just use a browser, but I do like the idea of having a native client like that. I think, when you're talking about pushing it further, the one store that we would need to move over to Linux to really move the user base would be the Microsoft store. Like they put that up there, you know what I mean? And that'll be a big one. Obviously, they will never do that, but I think that would be pretty awesome to have all your Windows games available on Linux through Microsoft.
There's an interesting thing. So I don't know if you guys saw it. So I created a Blue Sky account, and I had a Mastodon account, but I now have a way. I'm trying out a thing where I can post once to all of them. So which has been the thing that I've been dragging my feet on. In any event, Tim Sweeney was like, Steam is bad. They will take 30% of your money all the time. And I'm like, well, actually, no, they don't. And here are some reputable sellers that, you can buy, and Valve gets 0% of them. And a lot of people have been pushing. They're like, yeah, but Epic, you can download GOG. You can't download GOG on Steam. And I'm like, all right, but it would be kind of cool if, like, Steam, I know Steam wouldn't do it, but it's like there's this area where Linux would just be a lot better if Steam was just like, actually, come on in and do some stuff. But I don't know if anyone would like that, but it would sure be awesome.
I don't understand what you mean. Like, already, I could take a game that I bought on GOG and add it to Steam as a non-Steam game.
Right. But yeah, so these are people saying in Epic Games Launcher, you can download GOG via Epic and launch GOG through the Epic Launcher to then do stuff on GOG. And they don't stop that. And that's basically what they're saying is, like, I'm not saying I want to open up GOG through Steam. I would rather have, like, a fundamental integration layer that, the supposed Xbox hybrid thing of whatever that is going to materialize to, of this magical land of, wherever you want to go, you'll have your stuff. And however that's going to materialize.
It's that we were a society meme.
Yeah. But, I mean, there's a lot of people that are either in agreement with me or just telling me really mean things. And that's all that it is. But I did see someone mention that, like, Epic's so open that you can just download GOG. And I'm like, all right. I don't know how valuable that is, but it'd be cooler if, especially for this Linux side. That's the only reason I bring it up.
Thing I was thinking about, like, when maybe it was Bill, when Bill was talking, is like, what would be cool is if, like, Steam did play nice, and all the platforms, right, did play nice such that, like, the store and the platform were separated. Yeah, it was when Bill was talking about, like, oh, you won't get to see the Epic or the GOG ads for these other games. And I was like, I would like that too for Steam. Like, I would like to maybe, like, what if I just want to use Playnite on Windows, for example, and I want Playnite to launch my Steam game without necessarily launching Steam. Obviously it would have to launch, like, Steam DRM, but, like, maybe not launch, like, the client and it's just the DRM and the game.
Like, have a helper application.
Yeah.
Because, like, when we got the Xbox Ally X, and you go to launch a Steam game and Steam is not already running, the first thing that happens is Steam opens up, and then it opens up the little advertisement for whatever, like, games are being advertised right now, and you're like, okay, now I got to close that, and then I got to tap this, and then I got to open up, tap on the game icon to get into the game because it has to launch Steam first. I get what you're saying, Rich. It would be really cool if instead I could launch that and it could just be a little helper application in the background. but I don't see that ever happening from any of them. Epic won't do it. Steam won't do it. Nobody will do it.
If Microsoft was reading the room, they would do it. But no, instead they're going to have AI helpers that will clutter your screen, and your whole viewport will be nothing but AI stuff, and you'll have this much of whatever you're looking at, and that's it.
Yeah, I noticed that you wanted to launch this game. Would you like me to write up a report for you?
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, if anyone could do it, it's Microsoft. Microsoft could definitely pull that off and not have to worry too much, right? So that would be smart of them.
Like the supposed hybrid, right? Like Microsoft has the muscle where they could just be like, hey, actually, yes, you can have your stores and we can totally advertise on those things, but you kind of have to like integrate better into this. I don't know if it would happen, but Steam, it would be nice if Steam was so benevolent that they'd be like, hey, other launchers actually integrate into this way and we'll figure out a way to do whatever. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let us know what you guys think about, is this the year for Linux gaming? Let us know in the comments section down below. And we're going to move on to our next topic, which is still about Linux. This is about Bazite, which we talked a little bit about it last week, or maybe it was the week before. I can't remember now. But we had a little update that we wanted to talk about. But before we get to that update, there's this post over at Bazite's website, which is Universal Blue. And it says a brighter future for Bazite. Hi, everyone. We wanted to share an update on the future of Bazite and where we're headed next. Some of you may have noticed that several of our repositories, such as our kernel and handheld input libraries, have recently been archived or sunset. This change reflects a broader effort. We've joined forces with other members of the Linux gaming ecosystem to build something more something more sustainable and more impactful for the entire community. And they're calling it the Open Gaming Collective. And it's like they're working with Chimera OS, Nobara, Playtron, Fira Labs, which I've not heard of, Pika OS, Shadow Blip, and Asus Linux. And of course, Bazite. And it looks like they are going to make some changes. One of the changes is they're getting rid of Handheld Daemon. If you've never installed Bazite, Handheld Daemon was this thing that allowed you to modify some of the inputs on your system by double pressing like one of the buttons, and it would bring up this extra little menu. A really, really good software solution. I guess they're getting rid of that, and they're switching over to a system called Input Plumber, and it's going to be the same input that is used by, and it says the same input framework used by SteamOS, Chimera OS, Nobara, Playtron Game OS, Manjaro Handheld Edition, Catchy OS Handheld Edition. And so they're like a lot of the things that you can do in Handheld Daemon, you're going to be doing in Input Plumber instead. But it looks like they are, kind of collaborating, which most of the time when you look at, what's the word I'm looking for? When you look at like groups of open source software, usually it's like, I'm going to do my own thing over here, and you're going to do your own thing over here, and you're going to do your own thing, and we're not really going to communicate or work together in any way. And I think it's cool that they're doing this. Russ, what do you think about this, man?
It's good. I think it's, the compartmentalization of Linux in general has always just been kind of hard for the end user to try to figure out, hey, specifically what is going to be the best fit for me. And I love this idea of having a shared driver and kernel like system. Like that seems really kind of neat. It's probably going to be less work for all these guys, which I think is good too. I honestly haven't used a lot of these other tools. I've tried a little bit of Chimera OS, but the other ones I'm not familiar with. But I think that, anyone all lending together to a nice collective like this, it might turn out well. Who knows? It might splinter even more, but in general, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I think just a quick clarification on like Input Plumber and Handheld Daemon, both of those like are not just like the software that you see, but it's a bunch of invisible software too,
right?
That like will take your input devices that you do have that are disparate, right? Like a lot of those input devices are disparate as opposed to a controller, which has a single input driver usually, but it combines like the analog sticks and whatever trackpads and the rumble and all of those different drivers, takes that and translates it into like a single, not a single driver, but a single sort of input system, usually like the DualSense or DualShock or something like that. So it's interesting that they're switching over to that. And like they said, it is something that SteamOS uses. So I do take a lot of this to sort of be a more standardized, more maintainable approach, because all of the other distros that they work with, those are people that are already on Input Plumber. But more importantly, these are all people that are trying to work towards the same things, right? They're trying to get drivers for new input devices that come from new handhelds or new CPUs or things like that. So they're all working already towards the same goals. And I think this in general they said that this is what they're looking for. And I agree. It's going to mean better hardware compatibility, fewer duplicated efforts, and a more unified Linux gaming experience for everyone. That's basically their marketing, but I agree with that. And I think that's what's going to happen out of this.
Yeah, that last thing that you just said, a more unified Linux gaming experience for everyone. I think that's the part about this that I'm most excited about. I actively avoid what's known as distro hopping because I don't want to learn another thing. Like I kind of know how to use SteamOS. I know how to use Bazite because I don't have the option to use SteamOS on other hardware, so I was forced to learn Bazite. But now, if I want to, like, once this becomes more unified, I could jump over to CatchyOS or something else, and it's going to seem more familiar, especially if it's got that same stuff. At least that's what it seemed like to me. You know what I mean? Am I reading the tea leaves wrong, Rich?
No, I think you're right. I think there will certainly still be differences, like, and like you'll get used to that, right? So, like, for example, one might have the GNOME desktop and one might have the KDE. So, like, you'll still see that sort of, and Bazite famously does both or offers both.
Which I didn't remember which one I'd used. And so the second time I installed Bazite, I was like, what the hell is this?
Exactly, yeah. So, yeah, I think broadly speaking, you will get exactly that, a more unified Linux experience.
So for me, the big thing here was that Bazite did a lot of, I think the big surge for Bazite was that Bazite was the combo of Handheld Daemon and what Bazite was doing right. And between the two of them, they were offering the promise of what SteamOS was supposed to be, was that, hey, install this thing on your crazy what's it handheld that's not a Steam Deck, and you can totally do all the things that a Steam Deck can do. Do you want to control TDP? No problem. Handheld Daemon's got that. What, you got some crazy old input? We got that. Oh, you have some weird gyro that you want to have for motion control? We'll take care of that. Fan control? Oh, we can do that. So it was like
LEDs.
There was a lot of
LEDs.
Yeah, there was just Handheld Daemon was the glue, and Bazite was doing all the parameter and stuff and making sure you're at the latest kernel, you get all the latest goodies. And between two of them, they were answering the promise of what SteamOS was, which is why, like, every time someone was asking me, like, SteamOS or Bazite, I was like, actually just go Bazite, because you're going to get what you're actually looking to get. And my hope is that Input Plumber adopts that same philosophy that Handheld Daemon did, was that transparent glue that just worked. And it was so easy that it just really made everything, just work. And it really helped, I think, in my opinion, make Bazite, so as strong as it was. So seeing Input Plumber, I just really hope that, when you look at SteamOS by itself, like default, when you go into like the quick access menu, the QEM menu, it's like kind of bare bones, and a lot of things aren't there, and you're missing a bunch of stuff. So it feels like you're not able to really get to all the things that you would like to get to. And it's like, man, on Windows I had all this stuff. I mean, it's all in these weirdo things that whatever OEM provides. But with all that other stuff, you had this very simple interface that was pretty much similar across the board. So that's really what I would like to see, is like, and hopefully Valve also does it. Like, they're just like, there's a part of me that the Decky plugin system, I think, is generally liked. The only reason that people don't like it is that it breaks all the time, and then you have to like, oh,
Right.
we have to update. But the things that Decky does is, I think, what people actually want. They want something that is modular in the quick access menu, that is a plug-in like system that won't break all the time, where you can just be like, hey, actually, I want this module, I want this module, and then you can start doing some cooler stuff, like all of the when RDNA 3 had the hacked-in method to do FSR4 on RDNA 2 and RDNA 3, and you can enable that on Steam games through a Decky launcher and have it a lot more simple. So I think hopefully we're getting to that point with Input Plumber, and like you can kind of like have this future of like, actually this is like handheld aim at plus, like this is even better than it was, and it's also far simpler, and in the quick access menu itself, not in this other layer on top of that, which handheld aim was. It felt a little like another thing, even though it was fairly transparent. So that's my hope from this particular thing. Outside of like, hopefully there's other like middleware stuff that they can kind of gel in together. But the Input Plumber is the bigger one.
Sorry.
No.
I will say that I ran into issues with handheld daemon, not because there was a problem with handheld daemon, but because there was essentially there were two places to mess with your TDP. And so I was like, my game was running like crap. And I was like, why is my game running like crap? It's because I had changed my TDP in like the wrong place, and I'd forgotten that I had done that. That happened on SteamOS as well. Once I set my TDP down to 3 watts, and then I started up Monster Hunter Rise, and I was like, what the hell is going on here? This game was running fine yesterday, but then I was playing a different game, and I had forgotten to tick that little box over that says use per game setting. And so it was just like all my games were at 3 watt TDP, and I was like, what is happening here?
No fun.
The one thing that annoyed me the most with handheld daemon was that it adopted the same silly whatever the schema is escaping my brain. Effectively, Intel has these things where on TDP there's 2 values. There's PL1 and PL2.
Oh, right.
PL1 is what it actually runs at. AMD calls it slow and fast. And effectively what it means is PL1 is what you always run at. And PL2 is this other number that will run there for 28 seconds or so. So for 28 seconds, you get really good speed. But then afterwards you go back down to the bad speed. And it's like, why does anyone care about this? In a gaming, you're not playing for 28 seconds. You're playing for over an hour. So just lock them to the same number. And in fact, that's what Valve does on the Steam Deck. They don't do PL1, PL2. They just lock them both to the same. And I tried expressing this, but it was always the same. So that's one thing that I hope Input Plumber fixes, is that it's like, actually, PL1 and PL2 should just be the same number. I will say, small caveat, I reviewed Intel Panther Lake and obviously Intel Lunar Lake, but Intel Panther Lake, I was talking to Intel again before when the embargo process, and Intel's like, oh, you remember how in Lunar Lake you had to set PL1 to a little bit higher than PL2, a little bit higher than PL1? They have to do the same thing for Panther Lake. And I was like, all right, that seems like such a weird thing to me. So I purposefully manually set the PL2 timer window from 28 seconds down to 1 second, so it would not impact my benches. And even still, with that 10 watt, 11 watt, the performance of Panther Lake was substantially better. So Intel is doing some crazy shenanigans where they kind of like really want that to be the case. So hopefully they can navigate this where it's just like set the timer to like, a fraction of a second. You can make it whatever you want. Make it 1 million for all I care. But just make sure it basically doesn't work. And that's what, if that's what they need. But I don't want them to offer this because it's just kind of silly.
Well, I said that we had an update from previously we were talking about GPD and whether or not because they had mentioned that they were officially supporting Bazite as an operating system. And then the people behind Bazite, Kyle Gospodinich, said, no, that's not true. We're not working with them. And look, there's some drama in the background. I am not interested in the interpersonal drama at all. But we did want to give an update because Rich talked to some people and found out a little bit of information just to kind of update everybody on what we were talking about last time. Rich, you want to take it away?
Yeah. So when you say talk to some people, the 4 of us were talking about it back and forth in our group chat. And I'm like, we know Bazite guys. Kerry clearly has a good relationship with GPD. Like maybe like we can just talk, right? So I just opened up a group chat and Kerry did all of the talking from there pretty much. But yeah, so to summarize, last week we did learn of GPD promoting themselves as officially working with Bazite. Bazite denied this, as you mentioned, Bill. And like we even mentioned that like GPD's history in the past of their like communication blunders. I said that they should do better. We even alluded to like there being benefit for GPD in drumming up this hype around Bazite. But yes, situation's more nuanced. So basically a member at the time of Bazite had reached out to GPD and had a working relationship with GPD where GPD sent them multiple handheld devices. That member was voted out of Bazite in early December, but they didn't inform GPD or didn't inform GPD until later that they were no longer associated with Bazite, and that basically caused all of that confusion as far as I can tell. So since then, both GPD and Bazite have issued statements as of today, as of recording. And yeah, I would say, again, those press releases that they issued kind of say the same thing, essentially, that what I just described with this person working with GPD, but that relationship, not the relationship between that person and GPD, but the relationship that they had with Bazite basically being fractured and causing this communication.
Right. And most of the time you'll like, after all this nonsense, most of the time you end up with two guys pointing at each other saying it's his fault. Right. But now Bazite's pointing at GPD and saying it's not his fault. And GPD's pointing at Bazite and saying it's not their fault. And so everybody seems to be copacetic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody's happy.
Absolutely. So I'm happy to see it. And I'm looking forward to the future of GPD and Bazite once again.
But it doesn't seem like it's going to be for the GPD Win 5. It's going to be for the GPD Win whatever's next, right?
Yes, but also I think Win 5 mostly was done. I don't know what the state of that. Yeah, Kerry, would you say from your knowledge it's done already?
I mean, yeah, you could just... Yeah, so I was working on Bazite with Win 5 in October. So it already like was working. And naturally, you can just get the handheld version of Bazite and install it on the Win 5, and it will install. So you can still install it on the Win 5. It's just that the new OGCified Bazite does not have access to a Win 5 at the moment, even though it's already supported. So more like going into the future, any future products, any future devices that GPD makes will likely be going into the conglomerate. Whoever is going to get elected will, they'll send off a thing just to, sponsor them a device so that they could have someone that is on the development team put work in to help support it so for the community can benefit.
Awesome. All right. Well, let us know what you guys think about, Bazite's future and the new, I forget what, the Open Gaming Collective. I think that it's all good stuff, and I'm super excited about it. We'll see where it goes from here. Let's talk about what I think, I'm going to say, I think is one of the most ridiculous websites, not websites, one of the most ridiculous lawsuits that I've seen in a really long time. Valve is currently being sued by customers in the United Kingdom for unfair pricing, which when you buy games on Steam, like one of the great benefits of buying games on Steam is they're constantly really freaking cheap. Like it's cheap to buy games on Steam. And apparently they're being sued. We've talked about this before. I guess Valve had until now to try and, stop it. But now it is going to trial, apparently. And it says here, Valve's legal representatives have tried to prevent the case from going to trial, citing several reasons. These include a claim that ShotBolt had not put forward an adequate methodology for comparing Steam's transaction commissions to the alleged increased prices. As was spotted by Reuters, the competition appeal for tribunal confirmed on January 26, 2026, that the lawsuit will continue as a CPO on an opt-out basis. CPO means it's a collective proceedings order, where basically, I forget what it's called in the U.S., but it's like kind of like class action. It's kind of like a class action lawsuit, I guess. But basically, they're saying Steam is overcharging everybody for video games because they don't let you sell your game on other websites for cheaper than you sell them on Steam. But that's because you're using Steam keys. So like if let's say that Carrie wants to be a reseller, he buys a Steam key or he's a game maker, right? Not a reseller. He's a game maker and he uses a Steam key and then sells it on a different website, which happens all the time. If he undercuts Steam on that, that's a bad deal for Steam. And so I would understand why they would try and get in the way of that. It doesn't make sense. Like now, if Carrie is just selling his game, not using a Steam key on some other website, he can set whatever price he wants. What do you guys think about this lawsuit? Because now it looks like it's moving forward. Do you guys have any reaction to this, Russ?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of layers to this. Part of the lawsuit also talks about the fact that Steam takes 30%, whereas Microsoft and Epic Game Store are 12%, and even Epic Game Store apparently doesn't start even charging any of that commission until you reach $1 million in revenue. So I think that's part of it too, is that they're saying that this is unfair, the 30% cut there. And yeah, I mean, that's always, that's one of the decisions that someone has to make as a game developer, is whether or not they want to go that route or somewhere else, and it's the same thing with like iOS and the Apple Store and everything else, But then, yeah, like this idea of them having, what do they call that? The platform parity obligation, right? This idea that if they're going to be selling it elsewhere, it's got to be kind of at a same price or similar price, as opposed to hosting it somewhere else and then deeply discounting it. And I don't know enough about it to have like a strong opinion about it. For me, it's just as an end user, I've always been pretty happy with Steam in their sales and everything else. It's a great system for me as a gamer. I just put all my games on my wish list. I wait till they're at a good price. If I really get a hankering for a game, then maybe I'll go and look at like Green Man Gaming or one of those other ones and see if I can get it for a little bit cheaper. But otherwise, I'm casual enough that I can just wait for that. So yeah, I don't have a lot of huge opinions in this matter, but I'm sure Carrie does.
Carrie?
So yeah, right. We talk about this a lot of times, and I was actually in the background like looking up Alan Wake 2 because it just like popped in my head. So the crux of this argument, right, is that on Steam they're forcing this price parity on other stores, even if they sell other stores. It is worth noting that when a dev or a publisher generates a Steam key, Valve takes 0% of that. So they can leverage other stores and Valve gets diddly. Not a bunch of sales happen there, not the majority of sales, but it still is nothing. So there's a 0% cut for Valve in that respect. And what Valve is saying, or at least what the allegedly is saying, is that there is this term of like they are the foundation of what the price should be. Don't deviate too far from this, or else you might find yourself somewhere in not a great place. So there's if that is happening, if that's a problem, okay. That's what I think a lot of people kind of get up in arms about rather than anything else. But, when you talk about like pricing, Alan Wake 2 was only on Epic Game Store, and I don't know if that had much bigger sales compared to like Xbox and PlayStation. And is Xbox and PlayStation also causing this price parity of like, hey, don't actually make your game too cheap on other platforms because, or else, which I don't know. I have no idea, but I'm trying to look at the price history of Alan Wake 2 because it was and still is, right? Alan Wake 2 hasn't come out on Steam yet.
I don't think so. I've been waiting for it. My son just finished it the other day.
No, it hasn't yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just searched for it and it's not on there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm looking. All right, so key shops I don't care about, but like, let's see. The cheapest price it was on Epic Game Store for Alan Wake 2 was $15 during, I guess,
a good deal.
July.
That sounds pretty affordable.
Yeah, and then Epic. Oh, stop going to the other one. Epic. Why is it showing me Green Man Gaming? Green Man Gaming had it for $50. It is hard to follow this chart. I want to turn off the key shop. Ah, here we go. Thank goodness. Okay, so Green Man Gaming. I don't want to see Green Man Gaming. Official store.
Well, Green Man Gaming counts, right? Because that's part of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, it's
Right.
another,
Yeah.
it's
So
another store.
yeah, they are another store, and everything like so. Green Man Gaming also does not look like they've ever competed better than Epic Game Store in terms of pricing. They've always been higher in price than Epic Game Store, which I don't know if anyone cares about that. But anyway, the thing is like if since Epic is charging so little, what is the where is the problem? Is it the consumers that are saying, if the consumers are like, hey, you're charging too much because of this 30%, then the 12% should be making the game generally cheaper, when I don't believe that's the case. So I have no idea what this lawsuit is, but if the lawsuit is that they're complaining about too high prices, I don't know that they have a leg to stand on when you can point to Alan Wake 2 as something that isn't more affordable. But that's from that angle, not so much from the actual problem of like Valve stepping in and ambiguously threatening something, which is a whole other thing, which I think Rich might want to talk about.
This is why I put it in the show notes,
Yeah.
is because you guys have historically fought about it. So I was hoping that there would be some fisticuffs here.
Well, I think Carrie and I are always end up closer on this. I think really
Yes.
my problem is how many people are up in arms about this, right? Because if it's a fickle lawsuit, right, will determine that'll be determined. If it is a lawsuit with merit, that will likely be determined. I think, so like my take is I do consider myself a consumer advocate. I, like many others, I hold Steam in a super high regard. But I do think all corporations, and like probably especially market dominators like Valve, regardless of how they became to be market dominators, deserve scrutiny. That doesn't mean that like they should automatically be penalized for being market dominators. They just deserve scrutiny. Like we as consumers and as municipalities should be taking a close look at what's happening there, right? So I think when I say like people are up in arms, I think maybe what they fear is like Valve is going to be broken up, right? Like people are coming for Valve, Epic Game Store, all of these like conspiracies that Tencent, right? Like there are these large corporations that are coming for Valve. And I think the opposite is true with regard to legal pressure and Valve, right? Like it's not that when we've seen legal pressure happen before, it's not that Valve has had to be broken up or anything like that. It's that Steam has gotten better, right? So in 2014, when Australian laws required refunds for digital purchases and there was, legal action that was taken, Steam got better because of it and introduced refunds in 2015. There was legal action in Netherlands and Belgium with regard to loot boxes, and Valve complied only regionally, but they complied, right? And so that made it better for consumers. So I think competition isn't the only way to make like companies better. And unfortunately, we have a complete dearth of competition in the PC marketplace, but it's not the only way to make companies better. It is also consumer advocacy and legal action. And so I'll leave it with this basically. If they really do have price parity enforcement, I think we want that to be investigated properly. And if they really do have price parity enforcement, I think I deserve my $30 to $60 for buying 2,000 Steam games, right? Like if they really do, if they really do have it, give me my $30 because that's what it comes out to. It comes to about $30 to $60 per consumer. By the way, if you've noticed that Humble bundles have gotten worse over the years, then you may want to consider that may be due to price parity.
Interesting. I really like that you brought up the return thing, because a lot of the people who tend to watch this channel and who tend to watch your channel, Rich, they're ride or die Steam. They're like, they can do no wrong. And they're like, look at Steam's return policy. It's awesome. Yes, it's awesome because they had to follow the law that was that was made. Like, they had to. It forced them to do that. And that's great that they did that. It made the product better. And like you're saying, yes, there are other ways to like, competition can force companies to do better, but there just isn't anybody that has the ability to compete with Steam right now. Epic has tried. I hesitate to say that they've tried real hard, but they've thrown money at the problem, but they haven't really tried to compete with Steam. And I think that we need more competition. And so people are always hear me say really great things about Valve. Oh, by the way, you brought up the loot boxes. Valve complied, but then they did another loot boxy thing that I can't remember exactly what it was, where it was like, the way that they did it was they were skirting around the law. Yep, and they were following the letter of the law, but not the spirit of the law. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What game am I thinking of? Was that Dota?
No, I think Dota. It was both CS:GO and Dota 2, but I think it was a different like legal pressure, and I think that was a more global response, or maybe a U.S. response, whereas the one I'm referring to was Netherlands and Belgium specifically. But that did happen, and I don't have the specifics offhand, but I do recognize that.
But the reason I was bringing it up is basically because, you know what? The reason I say nice things about Valve most of the time is because most of the time they do some pretty great stuff, but sometimes they don't. And we got to hold their feet to the fire in those cases too. Now, this particular lawsuit, I don't know if it's valid or not. It just seems like somebody who's just like, see that big guy over there? I'm going to see if I can just poke him. And that's what this lawsuit feels like to me, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. I did, by the way, just something that probably should be noted when it comes to like, what about this? What about this? This same legal firm, as I understand it, Melberg London, is also suing Sony, and they sued Sony first. It's just ongoing, right? So like it's, and I think it's for a similar, like, you know, prices are too expensive sort of thing, like where like it could be cheaper if it wasn't, the 30% commission. I don't know the specifics, but that was my understanding based on my cursory look over that. And then also, I think that's interesting. You mentioned, like, you know, this potential person that, like, by the way, this person, I don't know much about them, Vicky Shotbolt, but they have been trashed over the internet. Like I subscribe to like Valve Reddit, like on my RSS feed, Steam Deck Reddit on my RSS feed, and some people have said some really nasty things. I did look up the consumer advocacy group that she's a part of and represents Parent Zone. And I was worried that when I looked that up, it was going to look a lot like Collective Shout, which was
right. That's what I was just thinking of.
Yeah, exactly. And Collective Shout, like I look at that website and so much stuff that I dislike and makes me cringe. Parent Zone is nothing like that. Parent Zone seems like values that I align with, again, based on a cursory glance of like, oh, we would like better ratings for children that take into account things like loot boxes, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I like what I saw on my, I'll say 5 minutes on the site.
So there's a part of me, so I'm going to go back. I am very much in favor of Valve for a lot of reasons. And I think I come back to, so I understand where we're coming from this, but there's also like the international community, people from Argentina, Russia, Mexico. There are regional pricing that customers in those regions absolutely love, that is almost Valve dominant, that they do, where Valve, when you're putting games on there, they're like, hey, we will handle pricing for you automatically in these regions to help you sell your game better, to actually make them prices that people will pay in these regions. And then some companies are like, actually, no, make it $50 US, but like in Argentina, they're like, oh, it's $1 bazillion. I'll never buy that game. And Valve does a really good job there, and which is why you have such strong support from a lot of individuals from those regions. Also, Family Game Share got way better. Oh, yeah. Recently, so that's like way more awesome. One quick side note: if you're ever taking a look at like the games that are excluded from Steam Family Share, it's not a whole bunch. It's some like the bigger players that you may recognize. But one thing that I found absolutely hilarious, and I don't know if it's just a joke, but Papers, Please is not allowed.
You think it's like where? You think it's like Ludo narrative, like Harmony? Like
yeah, like you cannot Steam Family Share Papers, Please.
Oh,
at all.
Without,
it's excluded.
Without proper identification.
Just at all. Like you have to buy. Like my son was like, hey, because I share my Steam library with him, and he's like, oh, I want to play Papers, Please. I'm like, yeah, sure, go ahead. It's on my library. Just go install it. He's like, I don't see it. And I was like, what? And I'm like, all indie games are available. Like, no one does this. And sure enough, Papers, Please. And I'm like, this is like some meta joke here. There's no way.
I will say there was like another indie game that I was similarly baffled by. I don't remember, so I don't want to say what I think it is just in case. But like, I remember I contacted that person. They were like, yeah, that it was a setting that was set by mistake or set by default or something like that. And they happily changed it. So maybe it was a mistake.
There's a part of me that doesn't believe that's the case. I almost feel like that's not the, anyway. It's pretty funny, but there's like things like Steam Family Share. But before we pivot off this conversation, I think the one thing that I would like to ask all of you is, let's say Valve says, hey, you know what? Actually, we're not going to charge you anything unless you make $1 million. So indie game devs, everything's going to be even more awesome for you. Also, we're only going to do 12%, right? People are already saying Steam is a monopoly. Let's say Valve just makes it even better. Are they going to be like, man, you guys are even more of a monopoly? I'm just even more furious. How can you be even better? Like, at what point do they like, oh, well, they only charge 12%? There's just going to be people that are upset that they are the dominant thing, and making them more dominant is not going to make them more happy.
Yeah, I think, are there always going to be people that are going to be upset? 100%. And like, some of the things that you're saying are valid defenses, right? Like, maybe it is a bad deal for Valve to offer Steam keys for free. Maybe that's just a bad business deal that like shouldn't be held up. And I just think that is a valid defense for their legal team to make in court. Right? and let the court decide. But that said, it's also like they're asymptotically, right? Like you can't get much closer to a monopoly than they already are, right, in terms of what we're talking about. Like, we were just talking about Epic having GOG as a launcher, not to mention all the free games you got via Epic and GOG. And in the same breath, we didn't say it, but we know it. You probably haven't played any of those games. And I play Steam daily, and I face the same things, right? Like, I have plenty of GOG games, Epic games. I never play them. I play on Steam, and I don't really have any intention to move away from Steam. I am a captive audience as far as that's concerned, which I think is even more reason why, like, if there is something there, it should be investigated. That's just my feeling.
That's fair. Well, let us know what you guys think in the comment section down below, that like button. Do you think that this lawsuit has merit? Do you want to get your $30 to $60? Or do you think that, you know what, I don't really care? Carrie.
What if instead of $30 and $60 they just gave you Half-Life 3?
That
just absolved them.
Get him right now. I want it.
It would work. It would work.
They're absolved.
Settle out of court, Valve.
Wait, do you guys think that we could sue Valve to get them to release Half-Life 3?
Oh, yeah.
The four of us? Yeah, we'll do that.
We'll sue them. All right,
NerdNest versus Valve.
You told us half a story, and we have been waiting to find out what happens after that cliffhanger for 20 years. I want my game. Release it now or pay me.
Yeah, they've been schadenfreudenly enriched by not giving us the rest of the story. They're over there all happy and giggling like, look at them. They don't have the rest of the story. This makes me so happy. That'll be all right.
I'm imagining this like courtroom drama, and like we're in court, they're in court, right? And they're holding up for the witness or whatever. They're like, hey, evidence here. Russ Crandall never even finished Half-Life 2 Episode 2 on Steam. We can see it right here. And I'm gonna be like, no, I played it on Xbox.
I will totally just be in this position so that when the courtroom like artist will have me, I want to be like that dude that's like this. Like that, right? This one where pointing to my hand. Put it in my hand. Where is it?
My hand.
Can't wait to see that courtroom art.
Exactly. Hey, if any of you guys can draw, send us pictures of Carrie doing that pose.
Yeah.
All right. There you go. Perfect. All right, let's move on and talk about Xbox for a little bit. They got some bad fiscal year 26 Q2 results. This comes from Shinobi over on X or Twitter, and they said total gaming revenue was down 9% year over year. Content and services was down 5% year over year, and hardware revenue dropped 32% year over year. Microsoft is having a really rough time. I mean, most of the time when we talk about Microsoft, they're like, yeah, they laid off these guys. They're not doing well in hardware, but they're making a lot of money in their services. It seems like it's starting to go back down. What's up, Rich? You're making a face. I see that face.
I want to say that this is another one of those arguments that like Carrie and I have had a bunch, and like if you notice, like in these reports, there's not a lot of detail, but I want to say one time we had an argument and I was like, I don't know how much money Xbox has ever made. Like, I don't know that they've ever been like really in the black. Like, it's hard to tell. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but they usually they'll say this is just a fiscal year report. They're telling us the percentages, and they're telling us the percentages are bad. Most of the time, they tell us the percentages are good, right?
That's true. They do tell us like how much they've grown, how much the Game Pass user subscription has gone up. Yeah, so I am
how much
curious.
They're listening to us.
That's it. All the metrics. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Russ?
I will add that there's a tweet that we're looking at that has this, but there's a link to the Microsoft investor like actual website, and it says that revenue was 81.3 billion and increased 17% year over year. So the revenue is still going. Like Microsoft's still making money, and they're making more money, but Xbox in particular, maybe not.
Correct.
And I also, the other thing I'm thinking to myself is like, okay, hardware revenue dropped 32%, but I'm assuming that Xbox Ally X and all those sales are not being factored in either. Whether or not that would be Asus hardware or Microsoft hardware is obviously a different story, but that could be part of it too. This is like their offloading of this idea of hardware going to somebody else, at least in the handheld space. I mean, I have the MSI Claw that I'm reviewing right now. I've been testing it out for about a week, and it came with the full game experience or full screen experience on it just by default. So,
nice.
Yeah, I feel like there is, they are getting away from hardware purposefully, and then this is a reflection of that too.
Yeah, and so like there's not. That tweet is pretty much all the information there is about Xbox specifically. So there's not a lot to like hold on to here. So I feel a bit like I'm grasping at straws, but you mentioned the hardware revenue being down 32%. And I think that's interesting when you see that the total gaming revenue is down 9%, right? So the hardware revenue was not, it contributed, but it probably contributed less to total gaming revenue than maybe I would have thought, right? And so like, I guess the question that I'm just going to ask, right, is does that mean they were right to take emphasis off of hardware, or is this more of like a self-fulfilling prophecy?
I feel like Microsoft had no choice but to take emphasis off of hardware. I feel like, Carrie's going to yell at me for saying this, I feel like the Xbox Series S was a mistake. It was cheap, and it was an entry level thing. And at the time when they said, "Hey, look, you can get a PlayStation 5 for what was it, 400 at launch,
500 at launch,
500. You can get a PS5, or you can get an Xbox Series S for 300 and something at launch.
Pretty sure it was 300.
300, okay.
And then the X was 500.
Right, and that sounded like an awesome thing. And I honestly, at the time, I thought this is the right move because it gives people multiple price points so they can buy the system that works for them. But because it was so underpowered, like devs struggled with it. And they found it just easier to make games that would run on the PlayStation because they didn't want to optimize their games, or the publishers didn't want to let the devs optimize the games. And that caused this. I think that if we had a head-to-head with Xbox and PlayStation, or Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5, I think it would be on a lot more level playing field right now than we are. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Carrie, yell at me.
So I don't like. I don't own a Series S. There's lots of good reasons why a Series S should have existed. I always was from the handheld angle, obviously. So I was like, that's odd. That's such a weird number to put this at. So there's a lot of like horsepower in the tank of a Series S. Like they could just upclock it and still get good gains, but they just don't. And initially, the reason was so that they could have more instances of a Series S game running in their cloud. That is a Series X, like Super Series X hardware that's there. So the idea is kind of sound, and insofar as, you know, DRAM and NAND prices going ballistic, having cloud hardware that you don't have to pay hardware for, you can just play on a subscription, kind of helps Microsoft now, and it might be way too late at this particular point, but they're fairly like super invested in the cloud architecture part of it, which is more where the Series S comes into play. But there's lots of benefits for doing it. I don't think that the Series X, if a Series X was out there by itself, there would be less negative talking points that would have come up. But ultimately, I still think that from the Xbox One generation, that blow that was dealt to them was something that they would not successfully recover from. And even in the Xbox One generation, when they already started doing their PC day one launch thing, it was already kind of set in stone where the Series X was always going to be falling behind anyway. So I am not of the opinion that just the Series X alone would have changed anything. I still think PlayStation 5 would have been dominant regardless of anything. That's just generally how I feel about it. But to Rich's point, Microsoft didn't make money on the hardware. They never did, right? Like, and neither did PlayStation, not at least initially, and not now either. Like, they're probably scraping by or losing money on every PlayStation sold. So if you see like, oh, hardware's down 30% on their numbers, it's like, oh, phew, like, thank goodness that was costing us a whole bunch. So from their angle, that could be a positive sign, even though everyone's like, oh, look how bad it is. From their numbers and fiscal report, it's actually more than likely a positive. So it really depends on what angle you look at it. You know, obviously their numbers are up. They're making a lot of money, but they also got beat up real bad. Their Azure, everyone was expecting, like they did fantastic. Azure was like doing crazy. They did like 39%. And because it wasn't 41%, the stock stank. And it like,
let
tumbled
the stank out.
Yeah, dude, take a look at Microsoft stock right now. It's like a cliff. It's just because of a 2% difference from their Azure cloud business. So they are heavily investing in CapEx. NVIDIA, they don't name it, but literally they're like, so much money is being spent for NVIDIA hardware for AI ML purposes that they have this big, huge CapEx cost, and then there's all this other stuff. So their stock got hit really bad. It doesn't look very good for them right now in a lot of different angles, but I'm not worried for Xbox at all. No. Like, this entire year.
Are you separating Microsoft from Xbox?
I am not of the belief that Microsoft is going to sever Xbox from what they have at any point. There is nothing in my vantage point, nothing at all, that suggests to me that they are pumping the brakes on doing anything. And in fact, with their AMD partnership on the Xbox Magnus thing, that looks like it's still a go. That's still going. It's still a monster from that angle. So there's things that I don't see Microsoft stopping. So all of these bad time things that are happening are kind of irrelevant. Like, they have their core customer base. People still play on Xbox via PC or whatever, and they are trying to figure out a way to do that. 2026 is going to be a bad time. So It's going to be a difficult way to navigate for every company, not just Microsoft.
So I will say the whole reason that I brought this up is because of that middle number, content and services down 5%. That's very different from what we usually see. And then when you look at like the idea of, I'm not worried about Xbox going anywhere either. What I see happening with Xbox is they've looked into the future, and you and I, Carrie, have thought about this many times. They looked into the future and they said, cloud is where it's going to be. So we're gonna focus more on that. We're gonna get beat up right now. They're like, everybody's gonna beat the hell out of us. But when we come out on the other side, we're gonna be positioned to do all this cloud stuff really, really well, better than everybody else. And right now, there's I know that PlayStation has cloud stuff. PSN. They have cloud streaming stuff. GeForce Now, which we talked about earlier in the show, that's really, really good if you want to pay for it. And the Xbox cloud stuff, of all of the ones that I've used, that's one's always been the worst. But I think in the long run, it's going to be real good. I think down the road, and I think that Microsoft is willing to take that beating for as long as it takes, if they can come out on the other side and say, by the way, everything's an Xbox,
Right. Yeah. So for the angle of it will get better, but it's going to require the Xbox Magnus hardware in their cloud server end for the quality improvement to be felt by everyone, because everything, when you connect to Xbox Game Pass Cloud, Xbox Cloud, it's Xbox Series X's, Super Xbox Series X's that you're connecting to that are running Series S versions, Xbox One versions, sometimes Series X versions of games, and then leveraging the encoding engine on those as best as they can. And they did make improvements, but it's still not super awesome at all, especially compared to GeForce Now. And the other side of that is, right, NVIDIA is actually, we're not even going to sell you 5080s or 5070s anymore. If you want a 5090, just subscribe to us. That'll be your way of having a 5090. So it's just the time, time right now. I think by next year, I think you are right that there's going to be this reversal of people's perception of what Xbox Cloud will be once that new hardware gets put in place. And they will have all of this cool stuff and a lot of content to be on there. I think they've positioned themselves very well. I don't know. It'll be interesting how well this hybrid thing actually works. I think that's what ultimately this is going to come down to, especially with the Asus makes an Xbox or whoever makes an Xbox. That whole thing is going to be, I feel like the make or break moment, but I don't feel like, insofar as Xbox hardware, right? At that point, it's okay, well, now we're just a third-party publisher and, whatever.
I can't help but feel like the whole cloud thing is a little bit bleak, because you're right, the Xbox experience works, but it's not great. The best way to stream Xbox games is through NVIDIA GeForce Now, but that requires two different paid tiers, right? So you're double dipping just to get the one good Xbox experience. And then a part of me too is I don't want to put a lot of faith in NVIDIA in general to do anything gaming related right now, because they seem, if anything, be backing away from anything that's gaming related right now. And so that's there's no place for me to invest my attention and faith into right now, because I'm well, Microsoft's not getting it, and NVIDIA is too dangerous right now too. And so it's a weird spot. But I do think that, I want Microsoft to be in a spot where they're backed into a corner, where they have to do a make or break and a kind of a big decision and make something cool and innovative that works, right? And maybe try a few different things, and some won't work and some will. I want them to be in that space, but I don't want us to push them, and by us I mean the world or whatever, to push them so hard that they're you know what, we're just going to quit. So it's we got to get in this super small band where it's okay, we're putting pressure on Microsoft. People are making it known that they're not a fan of, a 32% decrease in their hardware sales, things like that, right? Yes, motivate them, but don't go below the band. We don't want them to drop out, because then it's just going to be Sony and Nintendo. And so we want the competition. We want them to improve, and we want to give them pressure, but not too much that they quit.
I think, first, just that experience that you're giving with Game Pass and GeForce Now, and your hesitance there, that just underlines the problem with like cloud gaming, right? Like your fate is entirely in other people's hands, and not just people, but corporations that like do not have your best interest in mind. And so like, yeah, that's why it's a troublesome proposition. But I'll say too, the like notion that, your like the pressure that you could put on Microsoft. I think what's interesting is like this whole Linux thing. What happened, Carrie? What'd I say?
I'll go finish what you're saying.
Now I want to know. All right, real quick.
Yeah.
The pressure that I think Microsoft is feeling right now is actually from Linux. They appear, so I didn't think that they cared, right? But like I've heard that they're angry about Linux being a big gaming thing right now.
Why is it so good? Why did we suck?
Right. Yeah. So
let me sign into Notepad.
Let me sign into Notepad. So apparently,
like, all I can think of is like there's that movie. There's always this movie where there's the character. He's like, why does everything always work out for them? That's what Microsoft is right now.
Yeah, they're the jealous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nope. Yeah. I don't get it. So yeah, I think that's where the pressure can come from, is from Linux.
So the thing I was laughing about in my head is like we were just you were talking about like can't trust corporations, and we have this streaming future ahead of us, and it's like the year is 2030. I have 10 minutes to play my streaming game. I try to pay Papers, Please, and I can't because it's not on my family plan. And I'm like, I only have 9 minutes left for this year.
But then you can watch an ad, Carrie, and then you can get 5 more minutes to play.
Yeah, it's gonna be so awesome.
Because I mean,
so much fun, guys.
We've seen that like there's an ad-supported tier on Microsoft's cloud, whatever, and
right, yeah.
Like
that's like the free, right?
Yeah, it's the free tier. But it always starts in the free tier. That's where it starts, and then it moves. It never stays in the free tier. They're going to be like, in order to offer our customers more opportunities to play games, we need to make sure that you are watching these ads. So while your game is loading, you got to watch this thing about Tide Pods or whatever.
Dude, yeah. It's like that thing, like they're like the marketing people are like watching Black Mirror, be like, these are great ideas. Like, why did I think of that?
I don't know. We should have thought of something. All right. The last news topic before we move on and talk about your hot takes is apparently U.S. Congress wants the FTC to review EA's sale to Saudi Arabia. For those of you that are out of the loop, apparently EA has been approached to be purchased by not just Saudi Arabia, but it's like this investment fund, and Saudi Arabia owns a big portion of that investment fund. And, Congress is basically saying, you know what? We just saw what Microsoft did when they bought Activision Blizzard. We didn't like that because Microsoft said, hey, we're not going to raise prices. And then they raised prices. And then EA, which has been having all kinds of problems, is getting purchased by this investment group. It just seems like the gaming industry. Full transparency. When Microsoft was trying to buy ABK, I was okay with it. And the reason I was okay with it was because the leadership at ABK was terrible. And I thought maybe we can get rid of them and then it'd be better. Turned out I was wrong. It's not really that great. So I was wrong on that. So now I'm very wary about these big companies coming in and buying up all of this IP, because then they control it and then we can't get we don't get to see any more stuff from this. So I like that members of Congress are saying, hey, maybe the FTC should look into this and make sure that it's on the up and up and it's something that's actually good for the industry, because I doubt that it is, even though, EA gets a lot of shit, but they've made some pretty good games in recent years. I mean, yeah, there was that time where they wanted to charge us to reload our guns, but that was a long time ago. And we got really good games like the Star Wars
Battlefield.
What? Well, I mean,
Battlefield as
people
well.
didn't like the Battlefield one, even though I thought it was great.
Jedi Fallen Order ones.
Yeah, Jedi Fallen Order. Those are the ones that I was thinking of. Although Battlefront is really good. Like,
Yeah,
it really is.
a lot of people. Yeah.
EA tried to do some nefarious things, but they ended up stepping back after they got that backlash and like the most downvoted comment on Reddit ever or whatever it was. But you know, the EA's Jedi Fallen Order games, those are really well received.
Yeah. Also, they're the publisher for like It Takes Two and
Right.
Split Fiction. Yeah. So their wheelhouse of stuff that they have is great. Like especially the latest Battlefield that came out. A lot of people love that. So yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think that I don't know what to make of it. I know that sometimes it's kind of crazy, but like when you take a look at even Ubisoft is in like this weird position of it's genuinely a ginormous company. They have like 16,000 employees and they're not doing so hot.
No.
So it's like, you know, you're like, I was always like, maybe someone's going to acquire Ubisoft because you take a look at the stock price of Ubisoft and it's like, I don't know, we could probably buy them if we wanted to. It's just we couldn't afford. Like, you know, it was like, hey guys, we're the CEOs now. We need to fire everybody because we can't afford the payroll.
So par for the course. So it'd be exactly like anybody else buying them.
Yeah, it's like that's what would happen, and it's like I don't want to see that happen, but at the same time, Ubisoft is kind of like in that. I feel bad because Ubisoft, there are the technical prowess from Ubisoft, and especially like there's a lot of people that I know that probably grew up in the 80s and 90s that were flexing like Amigas and early hardware and have that in them to take it to the next level. And you can see that in like Rayman, their 2D framework. Assassin's Creed started off as just a tech demo of like how a character can like gracefully move through a bunch of a crowded environment. There's lots of stuff that Ubisoft does that is just really cool, almost like middleware tech that they just make games out of, and then they're very formulaic and they just kind of crunch them out. And I feel like it's unfortunate that everyone's kind of tired of that, right? Like they're not doing so well, and I don't know what's going to happen. But you see, there's like Tencent might buy Ubisoft, and it's like I don't really want that,
right?
And you don't want Microsoft to buy them,
no.
And Sony's not going to buy them, so it's like, well, what happens to this? Does this like evaporate and it becomes like a THQ type of thing where all of the IP just kind of gets splintered and sold off to all these different places? And is that the better thing? I don't know.
When you talk about Ubisoft, I think the one thing that I think of is the problem with Ubisoft is not that they make bad games, it's that they keep making the same game over and over and over, and people just got bored. That's why they're not doing well.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's just that I don't think that EA is a problem, but EA did a lot of the very transparent, we want your money type of thing. Like, just like, wallet, please. Like, empty your wallet, please. And it's like, can you just like, I don't know, lower the lights or something? Like, just like, wine and dine me first before we just do this.
Put on some Marvin Gaye and Chardonnay.
Yeah. Like, goodness gracious. Like,
yeah.
So, I mean, it may not have been fair for everyone to have voted EA to be the worst company of all time. But it still wasn't like they weren't in the top rankings, even though that they've produced really good stuff. The palpable stuff of like what they were doing was not popular. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I have any answer.
I think some of that reputation has eroded. Probably not enough. But I do think, like you said, there's It Takes Two, Battlefield, Star Wars, lots of interesting stuff that EA has made. And then I think that goes back to like your criticism of Ubisoft. I do think that they haven't tried anything interesting, right? Last week we were talking about them not holding on to the developers that went on to make Clair Obscur, right? That's a game that could have come out under the Ubisoft umbrella, and those developers were like, no, we clearly can't make that game here, so we're going to go make that game ourselves. And so Ubisoft seems to right now have no interest, or at least prior to last week, have no interest in making games like that or making interesting, take smaller bets, right? And EA
Right.
has been, to their credit, taking those smaller bets, specifically with Hazelight Studios. So that has been really fun to see. I think the deal, what Congress is asking is interesting on two fronts. First of all, the way that they're asking it, they're centering this around like labor market, right? And we had another story that we won't get to here about how like the U.S. video game industry has basically lost a third of its workforce in the last 2 years. And so the Congress letter here says we are committed to preserving fair, competitive labor markets and safeguarding American jobs. And given the impact of this acquisition on workers, labor market concentration, and the long-term competitiveness of U.S. video game industry, we urge you to thoroughly review this transaction. So I think it's cool that they're thinking about that. I did not expect to see this from Congress. So yeah, at all, right? So I'm optimistic about that. The thing that I am just confused on is that FTC did investigate the Microsoft Activision acquisition and a lot and recommended against it, and Microsoft just did it anyway and faced no repercussion. So like, what would you expect to happen here, even if FTC does investigate and say, no, we don't think this is going to be fair to the American people? EA
maybe the angle, as you had brought it up, was the workforce angle, because the FTC angle for the Microsoft ABK way was this is going to the consumer angle is like they're going to make sure that anyone that's on PlayStation isn't going to be able to get Call of Duty anymore and all this. And it was like, no, we're going to bring it to Call of Duty, and that did turn out to be correct. So all of the things that the FTC was fighting against never really materialized to be a problem to begin with,
other than price increases.
Right, for Game Pass.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Right. But I don't know that. Was it the game prices that were going to go up, or Game Pass prices?
My recollection, and this is just from memory, so I could be wrong, but my recollection is that Microsoft was asked specifically, or somebody said they're going to raise prices after they close this on Game Pass, and Microsoft said, we are not going to raise prices on Game Pass after this deal closes. And then the deal closed, and like, what was it, 6 months later, boom, $30 a month for Game Pass.
I think the weasel words that they used were, we are not going to raise prices based on this deal.
Right.
And,
so they just say,
like,
well, we were going to do it anyway.
Exactly.
Sure. But I mean, from the angle of everyone like, oh, goodness, they're actually going to be like, Activision are going to be exclusive to Xbox would be like awful for people that everyone bought PlayStations, and that never materialized. But I think the angle, if what you're saying is true, if they're worried about the workforce, then they're going to have to, I guess,
that's a great point.
Argue that.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think they'll have a lot more ammunition if they argue that, for sure.
Yeah, I think that
go ahead.
I was just going to say it's a $55 billion buyout is what they're estimating it to be. So like one of the largest corporate takeovers in history. So I am glad that Congress is at least getting involved with that. I mean, how many Americans are going to be affected by that? I think it's a big deal regardless of industry. And so I do appreciate that they're doing that. And so, yeah.
Well, and, you think of, you talk about labor or whatever, EA's had quite a few layoffs since the pandemic, the pandemic. Although, you brought up that thing, Rich, where the other story where it was 33%?
Yeah, 33%.
Like a third? Yeah. So like a third of the workforce is gone. And I hate defending layoffs because it's like, I hate that it happens. But what a lot of people tend to forget is during the pandemic, these video game companies were making so much money that they were like, let's just hire everybody. And that was irresponsible of them. They hired more people than they should have. And then they had to fire all of those people because they hired way too many.
There was a relevant blog post that was posted recently, so I'm going to plug it because I love this developer. His name is Tom Francis, the developer of Gunpoint, Heat Signature, and Tactical Breach Wizards. He posted.
I played that one.
Yeah, he posted a blog post called 15 Years of Indie Dev and 4 Bits of Advice. And if you do, we're obviously talking about this now, but if you look at that article where it says a third of the U.S. game industry was laid off in the last 2 years, a third of AAA studios, no, excuse me, 2/3 experience layoffs at AAA studios, only 1/3 compared to AAA for indies. So like, what's the difference between indies and AAA studios? And I think it's exactly what you said, Bill. They have to grow smaller. So like, he gave 5 guidelines, and one of those guidelines was stay as small as you can. He says, I hate to say this at a time when it would be nice that there were more jobs, but I want to encourage more stable jobs. Staffing up doesn't really create jobs if it leads to layoffs or closure, and it fucks with a lot of lives along the way. End quote.
There you go. All right, let's move on. Oh, no, Russ, were you saying something? I forgot.
No, I'm ready to move on.
Okay, Russ is ready to move on. I got distracted by shiny things, and that is bound to happen. All right, so I asked you guys, the audience who are watching this now, first off, thanks for watching. But I posted over on my YouTube channel, I said, give us your hot takes, and we're going to decide whether or not we agree with them, or if, maybe they're cold takes, or maybe they're scorching hot takes. And so we have a whole bunch of them. I went through and grabbed a few. I'm going to pick one. And then afterwards, these guys can pick one either from the list that I picked, or they can go and find their own in the many comments that came in that you guys sent in. And the one that I want to go with right here is from, it's really small, so I have to make it bigger or I could just put on my glasses. Look at me. Here we go. It says, I lost it. Oh, here we go. N. Burton 10 says graphic fidelity and performance peaked in 2018. Games could have stopped progressing then, and the industry would be better off. I do not think that is a hot take. I think that is a ice cold take. And yes, the industry would have been better off if we stopped making the graphics prettier. What do you guys think? Is that a hot take or a cold take, or you guys disagree?
What's a 2018 game? God of War.
God of War.
Yeah.
God of War.
Yeah.
I think God of War is like a pinnacle of if you just have like the finest craftsmen work very hard on really it ran on a PS4, and that is amazing.
Yeah,
right? Like the PS4
beautiful.
is great. But I mean the PS4 it's a capable device, but God of War on the PS4 was fantastic. That was amazing. They did a fantastic job.
I would throw in Horizon Zero Dawn and Last of Us Part 2, graphically and just kind of overall scope. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of I think those were 2019 or 2020, but still, I think that's kind of the spirit of what they're talking about here. Yeah, I think that's correct. I mean, look at Clair Obscur. It won all those awards, and that's got 2018 style graphics to it. That's kind of where I would place it as well. It looks like a PS4 game in some ways. So yeah, I would say it's not a hot take in any way. I'd say that that's something I would definitely agree on.
Rich? Go ahead, Carrie.
Go ahead, Rich. Oh, so all right, real quick. For me, I think that there is an unfortunate area where all of the AAA at the time were moving over to effectively everyone going to Unreal Engine 5 and all of the problems that they had to deal with there, and they're kind of working them out and trying to sort them out. There's a bunch of stuff that they have to do there. Microsoft, in their ways of just picking freelancers for 18 months only for a project, is bizarre, which also forces them to go to Unreal Engine 5, because then the time for them to get spun up and working faster in that thing is lessened if they're already used to it. So that's kind of why this narrowing of stuff has been happening. I think ultimately my thing that I want to kind of address is that all of the pinnacle games that we can say it topped out, God of War, Last of Us 2, Horizon, these are games that, not for nothing, but Guerrilla are amazing at what they do. Technical prowess is outstanding. I mean, Killzone 2 on PS3 it doesn't play good, but man, does it look outrageously great. And so as technical artists, they are absolutely insane, and baking all that lighting and doing all that stuff takes a tremendous amount of time. And you can see things like Doom the Dark Ages, where everything is now ray traced enabled all the time, and they don't bake stuff as much, and now they're just using real time ray tracing. So it's all these things to kind of make development time faster, not so much as make them look better, because hasn't been the case. But we're between. I feel like when 2030 happens, we're going to be in a much better area where maybe people can have splinter groups, kind of like the Claire Obscura, where you're going to have like these 20-man teams of like all these hotshots that kind of just disband and use all these tools to get up and going super fast. And I really think that that's the thing that's been happening in the background, is more about accelerating development time more so than trying to make things look prettier, because to achieve that level of how good it looks was an astronomical amount of time.
Will those 20-person teams be called indie is the real question.
Is Claire Obscura
that's
indie?
The debate. I'm sorry. I was just rehashing.
I think 20-person team is indie. Like if you, there's like, I don't know, 2 dozen.
I'm strongly in Claire Obscure was indie territory, but that's a story for another day.
That feels indie to me. I mean, like, you don't have to be like one person, like he's Superman, like to like I do everything. Yeah. Which is, amazing when people do that. But obviously that's like, they made a very good 2D game. Yeah. And there's a big difference.
Yep, for sure. Red Dead Redemption 2 is another 2018 game. So 2018 had some bangers.
Yeah. Just that company that makes gazillions of dollars.
Right.
Like that's our tier of Red Dead Redemption 2 came out in 2018. Can't we just have more of those?
Right. They're indie, right?
Yeah.
They're indie.
Yeah. Just bazillion team thing. Yeah.
So did it peak? I guess so. Graphics since Red Dead Redemption 2, God of War, and Last of Us 2 have not gotten like crazy better, but also I'm probably the wrong person to ask. I'm on like a 4-year-old GPU and I'm very happy with it. I'm gonna rock it till the wheels fall off. So yeah, I guess it's a cold take. I am vibing with it.
All right. Well, Rich, why don't you pick a topic that you also vibe with or disagree with, and we'll talk about it.
Okay. The one I like because it really made me think about this. Matthias, I want to say, said Nintendo is slowly and slyly building out a massive video game streaming service and will likely become the Netflix of streaming games. I don't know if I agree or disagree yet. I'm thinking through it, but it really did make me pause because I had a lot of doubt, right, when it came to any subscription and any like streaming service. But Nintendo has been slowly building their catalog when it comes to, what's it called? Nintendo Online?
Yeah, Nintendo Switch Online.
Nintendo Online.
Okay.
But that's not there's no streaming there.
No, it's not streaming, but like it's it's almost like set it and forget it, right? Because like you don't have to worry about the games that you download. They're tiny and like they have been like just adding like one by one, and it's starting to become a big library. And the reason I was really thinking about it was because over Christmas my wife was talking about Super Mario World. Like you, Russ, your wife only plays like what is it, Dr. Mario? My wife only plays Super Mario World. That's the only game she plays. And so I was like, oh, let me set it up. And I remember how easy EmuDeck was, and I ran through it and I was like, why is Steam ROM Manager harder than it used to be? And it was probably just my brain, right? But I was like, I would like a very simple option to go with here.
Yeah, so I think part of this whole streaming, what Matthias is saying too, is though it's like video game streaming service. So even Switch games would be streamed. Like that's kind of what I was thinking. I don't think they've got the infrastructure for something like that, and I don't think they've got the desire to go full online like that. I mean, they're such a physical company. I mean, I just bought like they got that little flower from Mario Wonder that they're selling on Best Buy or whatever. I just bought that thing. Like, why do I need that in my house? But hey, it's going in the studio. And so I feel like they're still very physically oriented and minded. And so I don't really see that coming from them, although they would be in a pretty good position for it, because if you take the cartridges from a Switch game, many of them, not Tears of the Kingdom, but many of them, and you dump them using my MIG dumper thing, they're only like 2 or 3 gigs each, and that is something you can easily stream. I mean, I don't know what the file size is of a Netflix movie that you stream every day, you know what I mean? But I can't imagine it's going to be much beyond that. And the idea of being able to stream a game at a small file size as opposed to a PS5 game, I don't know. It looks like from bandwidth perspective, it might be a pretty easy thing.
I did completely interpret that differently, right? Like he said streaming twice, but Nintendo and streaming sounds so ridiculous to me that I'm just like, I'm just like, oh yeah, Nintendo has a nice Netflix of a library, right? They're continuing to build it up, and so I took it to mean their current collection of games on their subscription.
So I guess what I'm kind of thinking about, before I move on, like my envision is that the files are so small that you could cache them, right? That you could cache the whole game in RAM and then play that, as opposed to like owning and downloading the game or whatever. And that would be a really neat, you don't have to rely on the network services, be able to play it right then and there. That's kind of what I was envisioning when I'm thinking of a streaming service, not necessarily playing it over the cloud, so to speak.
Oh, okay. I was thinking more like a GeForce Now or a Stadia or an xCloud.
I love that everything in Switch is like small. Like I mean, the Switch 2 is very impressive, but it's not a lot there, right? Like you can run what I find a little bit hilarious, how like Microsoft is like, man, we need to make a Series S so that we can like run at least like 2 to 4 instances on one piece of hardware. You could like with like a 5090, you could probably run like 200 Switch 2 games on one piece of silicon and just like, here's your blade. It'll run 200 instances. And you just like, okay, just have this one computer. But I like your idea, Russ, because it's like, oh yeah, the game's so small, it's that ready to play thing, ready to start. Remember when Xbox One came out, it was like, oh, just download like a gig of it. So it's like, you go on Nintendo Store and you're like, boop, and it's like, wait 2 minutes and you can start to play your game. I love that even more. Oh yeah, they're so small that we can just like kind of like get you going. You can play the first level within like 2 minutes of like downloading a game. I love that idea as well.
Does that too. Like you go to play World of Warcraft, you only have to download for about a minute and a half before you can get into the game, and then it streams the rest of the game to you while you're playing.
Right. Yeah, it's there's a lot of ways that we can do this because they're not terribly demanding in a lot of different ways, and they're small in a lot of different categories. So it's very interesting, no matter which way you think of it.
Yeah.
I don't think either one of these. I don't think any of this is going to happen, though.
No. No, Nintendo doesn't know how the internet works. I don't see that happening ever.
Yeah. They'll sell you a $50 amiibo and stream, I don't know.
Or talking flower.
Yeah.
I mean, their video chat is 10 frames per second right now in 2026. So.
Yeah.
Can I say I was wrong about game chat? Have I said it here yet?
I don't know.
I don't think you have.
My daughter, like every day she's on game chat. And she doesn't.
Really?
Yeah. And it's a Switch 2 exclusive,
camera?
right? No, not with the camera. Just on the Switch with her friends. And she's 9 years old, and every day she's on there and she's talking, with her friend and playing video games. So
wait, so you didn't think that people would want to use voice comms while they were playing games together?
I just didn't think they would. I don't know, especially like they are, her and her friend are sharing their screen, right? So like, you get the 10 frames a second screen share. But yeah, I guess I didn't expect it to this degree. No.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Carrie, you want to pick a topic and see if we can agree or disagree?
Sure. How about this one? Hot take. Valve missed a chance to capture the Linux gaming community by still not having released a SteamOS for the general public. They lost their chance to closely control the OS and software of most gaming PCs. Now, I find that to be an interesting thing because I think, and we said this earlier, that I have been often just advising people just to go to bad side, and now I've been doing CachyOS. So ultimately, I think I agree with this person is that Valve time has kind of hindered them because they made such a good foundation that worked, and then everyone kind of just sprinted, and they're just going at their own time, and maybe they don't even care.
I don't think they care. I don't think that Valve, they keep talking about how like they want to do like they want things to be open. The whole thing that ticked them off with Microsoft is that it was moving, like with Microsoft Windows 8, was that it was moving in more of a closed system, and they's like, I don't want that. Of course, there is like a business decision there. If people are just buying things on the Microsoft store, then they're not going to buy stuff from us, and that was definitely self-preservation. But at the same time, every move that they've made since then has been to make things open. Buy the Steam machine, do whatever the hell you want with it. We don't care. That's like their MO. I don't think they want to control everything.
Yeah, I think
I would say
go for it, Russ. I'm leaving it to you.
I would say I would say that they haven't missed the chance. They've missed the chance for people like Carrie, right? I mean, they missed the chance back when Hollow ISO was out. Like, you know what I mean? Like we've had these options to do this for a long time, but I still think that they have a pretty good sense of when's the right time for the general public. They've been doing pretty good about that. I think that the sooner the better in any way, right? But I still think that they should have an official SteamOS that you can flash onto a flash drive and then put on a different computer. Like I think that's something that we need to have as an option from them specifically. And I think it just takes time, and they're probably trying to do it right. And I don't know, dragging their feet a little bit, if I could say anything about it, you know. But we don't. The thing about them too is they're so mysterious that we don't know what they're prioritizing, what they're working on, or anything else like that. So we're all just kind of guessing. But so my thing is that I think this is a bit of a hot take. I don't think they've missed their chance. They've missed their chance with a certain audience, but they haven't missed their chance with the general public. Yeah,
I think you're all right, but I resonate with what Russ is saying the most. There's still so many potential people that could move to Linux that, yeah, they're still fair game. So like what we're talking about right now is such a small relative number of people that, you know, yeah, maybe Valve did lose their chance with these folks, but there's so many more folks that Valve can get if Valve does it correctly.
I mean, you walk down the street, you ask the random person, hey, what do you think of SteamOS? They're like, what the hell? Stop talking to me.
I'll say, what do you think of CachyOS versus SteamOS?
Right. Yeah. Like, you nerd, get out of here.
Yeah. Get away from me, Bill.
Whoa. That was personal. All right. Russ, did you pick a topic yet?
I haven't yet, but I got one. So I didn't pick from your list. I went and found my own. So
yes.
Nuno Suosa 7698 said, the era of affordable gaming hardware is over. Ooh. And I think it's a good, poignant note. And I would say this is a hot take. I think this, again, is probably very kind of subtle. But I would say it's not that the era of affordable gaming hardware is over. It's just that gaming hardware at the highest tier being affordable is probably over. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense. So there is, I've said this before, but there's no greater time to play video games than right now. And that still applies during the Rampocalypse, because there are still so many other ways that you can play video games. I've got a video I've been working on. It comes out tomorrow. It'll be out by the time this comes out. But I've got a $30 TV box from Walmart. And this thing has an S905 Amlogic chip in it that's great. Like, it can play Nintendo 64, PSP, and Dreamcast, $30. And so I think there are still ways that you can play video games. And sure, high-end gaming hardware is getting to this real weird point where I feel like there's always been this elite level of hardware. I'm thinking of like the 3DO and the Neo Geo back in the day. Like, that's so far beyond anything I could afford at that time, right? That's that higher tier. And now we're kind of thinking about, you know, today's version of the Neo Geo and the 3DO is like a 5090 to me. That's still well beyond what I think I can afford as a gamer. So I don't think that tier in particular is the establishment of what gaming is today, but rather just something along the middle lines. And yeah, it's more expensive now. I mean, a Switch 2 is what, $450 or whatever. But yeah, when it comes down to it, I think that we still are going to be able to play so many thousands of games today. And so I don't think that's over. That's my take.
I think it is not over. I think it's just on hiatus. I think that this AI bullshit slop is going to blow over eventually. It's Satya Nadella was just saying, please, God, anybody use Copilot, please. We got to justify the cost of this thing. Nobody wants this garbage except for AI tech bros. So eventually that stuff is just going to stop. Like, they're going to be like, you know what? It's not worth it. We're not making any money. So they're going to stop, and then all of the hardware is going to, like, the prices are going to drop like a stone. Now, is it going to happen this year? Maybe, maybe not. Is it going to happen next year? Maybe, maybe not. But it will happen. Eventually, the ridiculous price of hardware will come back down, I think. And then my second point here is that Rich is always talking about these amazing little tiny gaming experiences. He always has something cool to tell us about. AAA games have been just garbage lately. Like, they really have not been great. And the indie games are where I've had the most fun in recent years. So is affordable PC gaming going away? I don't think so. I think that if you want to play the best, the AAA blockbusters, you're gonna be waiting a while before you can buy into that again. But there's tons to play otherwise.
Yep. Back in 2020, right? Like, there was so much of like, oh, we're never going to go back to the office again. Like, even when COVID's done, things have changed. People are not going back to the office. And, cities are done for, right? Because if people don't have a reason to go into the office, then they can move to wherever. And so, like, we just have a tendency to see things as the way they are now and not going to change. But all it takes is for Steam Machine to launch at $600. I don't know if it's going to happen, but all it would take
$500
is Steam Machine to launch at $650, and affordable
$500.
Gaming hardware is back, baby. Yeah, $500. Yeah. So
I get 5. Can I get 4? 4?
So I'm going to agree with the person, but more so because of as we approach, as we're getting closer and closer to, we're using newer hardware, and this latest stuff to make silicon is exceedingly expensive, and the dollar of the value of the dollar is changing. I think the new normal is that we're going to be expecting the hardware to be in the $1,000 range as a generality. And, everything else on the cost of everything else is going to go up. So it's really just going to be perception that may change. But I think generally it has to go up. Things will go up. And you'll kind of accept it, I guess. I think it used to be like $500 used to be mid-range, and I think $1,000 is going to be the new mid-range.
I remember when bubblegum cost a nickel.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know what? Thank you guys for sending in your hot takes for us to talk about. It's always a fun conversation, but we are running right up against our hard out time. So let these guys tell you all about what they have coming up. Russ, you said you talked about that ONN. What's it called?
They call it the 4K plus streaming device. So this video will be out by the time this goes out. And so this is the $30 one. There's a $20 one, there's a $50 one, but it's the $30 one that has the most powerful processor. So this is one I would recommend. Wow. And so that's the one I made a whole guide about it. I tried to keep it under an hour because I went from start to finish and talked about everything. It's 58 minutes long. So nice. I got it right in. But wow. That was tough. Because the thing is about Google TV and everything else is they're really locking down the experience. And so Fire Sticks used to be the way that you could get a streaming device to play retro games on. I made a couple videos about that. They've locked it down so much that you can't do that anymore. And even this guy, you can't. So say, for example, you go to an emulator and it's like, okay, click on this button to browse to the location of your games. And there's no inbuilt browser allowed in the OS. And so it just says you can't do that. And so many front ends, many emulators actually don't work on this, but RetroArch has its built-in file navigation system, so it does work. And so you're able to use that. And then like the PSP emulator, you actually have to click. It's like kind of like when you're in Windows where you click on that file and it says, what app do you want to open this with? and then you pick the PSP one. So that's how you have to play a game, as opposed to navigating through their own menu. You've got to use the file browser, which is crazy. But so I put all those workarounds in the video. It's a lot of fun. And again, I kept it as cheap as possible. So no external storage, nothing else, just $30 gaming experience, plus the cost of a controller, unless you have one already.
I'll just jump in real quick. So for me, the video that I had just done was on Intel's Panther Lake. This was Asus's new 2026 Duo laptop, and truthfully, both companies, Intel and Asus, did a fantastic job. I had already released that video. Intel is definitely back. They are banging on all cylinders. I'm really excited to see where they're going. It is a fantastic platform. If you're interested in it, it's an hour-long video, and I go in depth like I normally do, and I probably should just like summarize a lot of things, because I think a lot of people get lost in the sauce there, and it would be really helpful if it's just like showed 3 things with like just a simple percentage.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, that makes sense. Even with mine, I was like, I can't believe this video is so long. I used to make the same video and it took me only 30 minutes, but now it's an hour.
That's crazy. And for me, nothing planned right now, so play indie games. That's my directive.
You got an indie game for us?
I'm starting TR49, which is like so far really weird, steampunky detective style game. So think like Return of the Obra Dinn or Her Story. It's kind of like that. But yeah, it's strange, but I like it. I'm digging it.
Very cool. So if you guys missed it, on my channel, I just put out a video where it was me and these 3 guys plus a bunch of other content creators all talking about our favorite things about Steam Deck. And so that's out. And I have another one that's coming soonish that's about all of the things that we don't like about Steam Deck. So make sure that you guys subscribe for that. And you guys could have been anywhere for the last 2 hours, but you decided to hang out with us, and I appreciate it. Stay rad, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See ya.